Welcome to It Takes Heart. I'm Sam Miklos.
And I'm Kate Coomber.
We hope you enjoy these incredible stories of healthcare professionals making a difference in communities across Australia and beyond.
Through our conversations, we look to celebrate the spirit of community and care.
We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land who have long practiced and shared ancient methods of healing, providing care and support for their communities with wisdom passed down through generations.
Join us as we explore what it truly means to take heart.
So our guests today are the unforgettable RN couple Helen and Nigel Naylor. They have locumed in many countries around the world, including the Middle East, the UK, New Zealand, and of course Australia. Our team have worked with Helen and Nigel for a good few years now, and they are so loved by our clients and their communities. In fact, often they're promoted while on contract or asked to stay on permanently. They embody the essence of nursing excellence. Their optimism, caring nature, adaptability and remarkable skill set have not only saved lives, but have also inspired those around them to strive for the best in healthcare delivery. Our team at Cornerstone love working with Helen and Nigel. They describe them as hardworking, reliable, enthusiastic and very thoughtful, and always willing to lend a hand, or apparently I've heard offer a place to stay. We might dive into that in a little bit too. So welcome Helen and Nigel to the It Takes Heart podcast.
Hi.
Hi.
Morning.
So let's get started. I want to understand where you both are now, because you're both in different spaces. Where are you? Helen, do you want to start first?
I'm in Kalbarri where we both started, and then we kept extending because we give the staff Christmas off, so we stayed behind for Christmas, and then they asked me to move up into the Don role. We both decided before Wax did that if I was going to do a management role, it wouldn't be good for Nigel to still be here. Just because of the conflict or anything like that.
Yeah.
Not that we can't work together, but if there was an issue, how would it roll out?
Yeah.
So
then, Nigel, where are you at the moment?
So I returned to New Zealand at the end of I've been home a month. I'm due to fly out again tomorrow. But came home. Dad needed surgery, so I've come home, did a few jobs around the property, a few shifts at home as well.
Yep.
Just to obviously keep my skills up in New Zealand. It's certainly a different level of nursing. Again, it blows me away the autonomy we get in Australia. Working the way we work. Obviously, with Wax we use ETS where we work. We don't usually have a doctor on site. And coming home to work in an establishment where doctors are there, it's quite challenging for me personally because you almost have to wait to be told to do something. Whereas obviously when we're in WA, we're expected to obviously roll with the situation, get on, make those judgment calls, and then obviously work alongside ETS. So yeah, it's quite different, but really enjoy being home. It's nice and cold.
I bet it is, yeah.
And a few frosts.
And is it unusual for you though, being apart? Because typically, would you be together?
We normally work together. So when I did Carnarvon last year, I was there a month before Helen arrived. And then obviously, we've worked in most places together. So obviously Carnarvon, Kalbarri, Northampton, we've always been together. And like Helen just said, we decided from the outset, if Helen took the management role, I would step down and move somewhere else. Because when we were in New Zealand, I was the manager of a large ED and Helen was one of my staff at the time. And it just, even though there wasn't a problem, it just created the possibility for conflict with other members of staff. So we decided from the outset, like Helen said, that I would move away. So I'm heading back to Mullawa. So a smaller site, but looking forward to it.
How far away from each other will you be then?
About 2.5 hours.
Okay. And do you would you stay together, or is it more of a weekend catch up?
No, we'd catch up on days off. And work through that way.
Yeah, lovely.
Ooh la la.
Yeah, right. Ooh la la.
Watch out.
Some fancy dating potential out there in WA.
Do you do what?
Helen needs me to do her ironing. That's
I love that.
How rude. I got to do
and what do you need from Helen, Nigel?
Trouble.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I would love to go back and talk about your earlier career and maybe where you met. You know, we get detecting accents, obviously, and where was home?
Touchy ground. Oh, okay. where did you
That's
study?
a wrap.
So obviously we're both from the UK. We're both from Yorkshire. So the thing about the UK is you can live literally 20 meters away from someone and have a different accent.
Yes.
And totally different dialect. So Helen is from the next town to where I was from, even though she's got a rather northern accent. So yeah, we're only maybe 20 miles apart. And we met whilst we were both served in the Territorial Army in the UK. We were at an air show, Waddington Air Show. We used to support the air show from the field hospital point of view in case there was a major incident. And yeah, we were drunk and we met.
Like
They spotted my Pooh Bear tattoo.
Oh my
And that was it.
And that
Love
was
at
it.
first sight.
Oh, like all good love stories. We were drunk and the rest is history. So what about your career then? From that point, like were you both studying nursing at the time?
We were both qualified, weren't we? Yeah, we were both qualified. I had been working in theatres, in theatre recovery, and Helen would have been an ED nurse at the time.
Fantastic.
In different hospitals. So yeah.
So then you've gone on
many moons.
Yeah.
Many moons.
What happened next?
You've gone on to have this big, impressive career working around the world. Have you just chosen places and moved to there?
How's the opportunity come about?
There was a lot going on when we first met because I was actually married to somebody else. Whoa, that's bad, isn't it?
I love that.
Yeah, but things happen, and it was never. We were together for a lot of years, me and Kevin, and had 3 lovely boys together. But we just grew apart. I still loved him, but I wasn't in love with him. And people say what changed. It was me, not. You just outgrow the relationship. I'd been seeing him since I was 16.
Yeah.
And along come my toy boy, 12 years younger. May I say?
I'm assuming that's Nigel.
No.
Is there another?
12 years
So
younger
I'm
than
12
Kevin.
years younger than her first one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
8 years younger than me, so I'm still a cougar.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, and then we followed a friend to New Zealand.
Okay.
And the reason we picked New Zealand rather than Australia, that's where she went. And because I don't do spiders.
Yeah.
I'm shocking if a spider's there
Yeah.
on a patient. I'm not going
You're
near
out.
them.
You're like, no. Yeah. Call the team.
I've gone.
So how did you
Hamburger.
how did you end up then in the Middle East?
So because we were in the territorials, it was the second Iraq War, and it was quite a bizarre situation at the time. They did basically a compulsory call-up, so it was the biggest compulsory call-up since World War II. And at the time, the weird thing was that there was a fireman strike on at the time at home, and they decided to use the regular soldiers, the full-time soldiers, to stay at home and fight the fires, literally, and they sent the part-time soldiers to war.
Right.
So it was a bit of a weird one. Helen was at Sandhurst because Helen was a lieutenant, and so she was at Sandhurst finalising her officer training, and they said basically before she went, if you do this, you'll be going somewhere hot and sandy. And Helen was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm going, no, listen to what they're telling you. And she's like, oh, yeah. So anyway, Helen was in Sandhurst, and this brown envelope arrives on the doorstep. So I thought, I'll open it, have a look. And so I starts reading it and going like, okay, okay. Starts again. And it was my name on all the paperwork, not Helen's.
Oh.
So I was like, okay. So I just started a new job at a private hospital in the UK, and I had to say to my boss, I'm off to war.
Wow.
And she was like, okay. And then Helen's paperwork came maybe a week later, but it was just a bit of like, you need to report to this place at this time, and if you don't basically turn up, you'll be arrested. It was just like, it was that serious.
And were you going to the same place?
Yeah.
No.
So we initially started in Q8, didn't we, together? Well, Helen, the night I arrived, there was a sandstorm, and Helen was in the camp at the sandstorm. Helen's tent blew away and all the clothes.
Oh my gosh. And what year is this?
No ironing there,
Yeah,
Helen. You would have been on.
friends with everybody. So the pioneers looked after us because we'd been doing their sandbagging. So we got to play a game of footy with them. So they moved the trucks round to try and protect us, but you couldn't see a thing.
Oh, wow.
And you had to put your respirator on, and everybody held hands. So it was like... And I spent the night in the Clive Band tent because our tent wasn't there anymore. So, but yeah, it's interesting stories, and I'm surprised they actually sent me.
What was the role?
Training.
What was the role you were doing there?
In the war zone, it was actually, I was in the ED at the main field hospital, which was 200 bedded field hospital.
Yeah, wow.
So,
And what about your role, Nigel, there?
So I was attached to a medical supply regiment because in the territorials, I didn't join as a nurse. I joined to get away from nursing, so I joined as a driver.
Right.
So I was a heavy goods driver.
Yep.
And then when they sent me out, they attached me to the med supply regiment. So we used to cover the 3 services and the prisoners of war. So we'd make sure all the med supplies were available for them, down to like having a blood bank, so we could do a major blood drive if we needed to out there.
How long were you out? How long were you out?
I think in total I was about 6 months. So it didn't seem a lot, but we were there before the war, the day the war started. And even though the actual fighting only lasted maybe a couple of weeks, obviously the ongoing effects are still being seen today.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Helen, being in a 200-bed ED facility there, how was that? Like, would you say on reflection that was rewarding? Was it stressful?
Was it scary?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody asks that question. Was it scary? It's a different... What you'd think I'd be scared of, we weren't. It was pitch black on the night. So I could tell you stories about a nurse who actually went to the toilet, got lost, and ended up the trenches.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Which she was traumatised, so we had to talk her down a bit. We actually built the field hospital from scratch. So it was putting all the tent work up and stuff. And people were coming down with diarrhoea and vomiting because the water was just... They'd sent out natural spring water but left it in the desert conditions, so it was like 50 degrees.
Yep.
And it was cooking all the bugs. So people were getting sickness and diarrhoea.
Yep.
And, and it's actually an event. It's in the British Army to get dehydration.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow.
But what do you do when they're
This is it. I was just
causing
going to say, absolutely. Yeah. So how did you get to Australia?
So I'm going to do what Nigel says with how did we get into nursing?
All right.
By a plane.
Fair point. Fair point. That was Kate's question. Was it a good plane?
No,
long lasting.
Better than the one we went to Bali on.
Oh, there you go.
We'd had a few years where I'd had issues with my health. I'd had an accident with my leg and it had led to other issues, and I've actually got a pacemaker that doesn't cause any problems now. And I just went, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. And it's always been one of my dreams, not Nigel's, to actually do Australia, but do the really outback remote stuff and make a difference. So...
And I guess maybe could you share what you feel that difference is in comparison to, you've talked about the work that you're doing in New Zealand and in a busy hospital where there's a big team around you versus when you're very remote. I think maybe some people listening might not understand what remote means and just how remote it is. Like, I'd love to hear from your perspective, paint a picture of what that is and the impact then you can have.
So New Zealand... So the rule of thumb in New Zealand is there's only 2 degrees of separation between everybody. Everybody knows someone who knows somebody. And that was proven when we came to Australia, and we're looking at people who are like, we know them. And like, there was a girl in Carnarvon where Helen goes, I know her from somewhere. And it turns out that she was one of Helen's students when she was a lecturer, a nursing lecturer. And then our previous Don at Kalbarri, we're like, again, we know him. And again, he was one of our students as well, so it's very small. We bought a car in Exmouth, and the lady we bought the car off, her partner knew a lady we worked with from New Zealand. It was just, everything's just so small in New Zealand, so a lot of people know people. So like is saying is, if you kick one person, half a town limp. Whereas in Australia, the sheer size of Australia is phenomenal, and I don't think people can grasp it. It's like when they say, "Oh, it's just down the road in Australia," it can be 1,000 k's.
Yes.
It's like, okay, that's not just down the road, but you do 100 k's in Australia and you see nothing. You do 100 k's in New Zealand and you've gone through maybe a dozen towns.
Yes.
It's like, it's just, the vast scope of Australia, it blows my mind. And being able to offer healthcare in those places where resources are limited. So even places like Kalbarri, it's only 2 hours from Geraldton, but it's still 2 hours if you need acute care. There's no physical doctor on site, so you are the barrier between life and death. There's no other way to put it for some people. Whereas in New Zealand, there aren't many sites, if any, that there aren't doctors, and you are relatively close to most things. So for like where we live here, we're 20 k's away from our nearest town, but the major regional hospital would be an hour and a half away. Or we can go to Rotorua, which is maybe another 40 minutes. But again, the health system in New Zealand now, it's only one system called Te Whatu Ora, where we had 20 DHBs previously. They were quite strict about boundaries, like, oh, well, you live here, you belong to that one. And it's getting a little bit more flexible now. So, having just the sheer size of Australia, is the thing that people are going to be, if they've never been, they're just going to be blown away by.
And I guess one of those hospitals, if we look at Kalbarri, how many beds are in that hospital? What does it look like?
It's actually quite, I'm going to pinch this one, Nigel, since I'm the boss.
Go. Yeah. She's the Don, let me tell you.
We've got 4-bedded, like little ward thing if somebody needs to stay overnight, and then we've got a palliative bed. And what's nice is you get the privilege to meet the community, the people there, so everybody knows everybody. So when you go to the shop, we bumped into a lady who I call my Kiwi sister from another mister.
I love it.
As she's coming for a patient. And I was just catching up and I went, oh, hi, how are you doing? Meaning, how was she doing?
Yeah.
And she went all on about her injury that she'd been in. And I thought, no, that's not what I want to talk about, And I always say to people, because you can build up a good rapport with somebody when you're working with them. When they see us out in the community, you can just smile and they can either acknowledge you or ignore you, because people will wonder how you've met.
Yeah.
And then it's that confidentiality.
Yeah.
But when you're working in smaller ones, and like when we go, like Nigel in Mullewa, it's trying to make a difference with the community. So it's not just about nursing in the workplace, it's about what can we do for that community. So we'd even looked at maybe doing some volunteer working for St John's, if was there a way we could do that.
Yeah, fantastic.
As we move along, because Nigel actually does search and rescue in New Zealand.
Right.
He does it to go up in the helicopters, I'll tell you. That sounds all good, but there's ulterior motives. But it's just stuff. We like education, so one of the things we looked at was maybe he doesn't know I've thought about this. This is my next one.
I love that you're about to drop this.
Nigel's
like, right, strap in, Nigel.
Let's plan this out.
Doing our ACLS instructors course.
Right.
Because then if we're at the back of the hand and the nurses are struggling to get to the courses, we can provide that in our normal hours at no extra pay to keep people upskilled, because we've got these different layers that we can bring to our workplace.
And that's what's
stuff like that.
That's so special too. That's the sort of stuff that we really look to share, those stories, because I think there's so many layers to what you can do when you go into these communities. Like you said, it's not just nursing in the health facility, it's all the volunteering and the work that you can do, and then it's also what other skills do you have that you can upskill and leave a legacy in that community as well.
And if you can be doing that there locally and people aren't having to travel, then you're improving the patient outcomes there.
Of course you are,
There's I imagine a gap between the outcomes sometimes in very, very remote areas versus what's accessible in a metro area. And it sounds like all of those initiatives that you're talking about, get on board, Nigel, because it's booked by the sounds of it. Well, now, that's huge impact to that community.
But the thing is, though, as you say, you can't just walk into a community and start dictating the way things need to be. And, you're doing this wrong, you need to do this, because you've got to learn how the community, and it's the same here in New Zealand, you have to learn about the community before you can be part of that community.
How do you do that? How do you do that respectfully, particularly when you're coming in and out on contract?
For us personally, I mean, we've been in New Zealand now, this is 21 years now, and even now it's still hard to understand the ins and outs of the indigenous side of things. Luckily, New Zealand, most of the Maori iwi, they do things similarly. Whereas in Australia, because I said in Carnarvon one day when we were there, so why don't we have like a cultural education system where you can learn about the culture and start to engage and try to be more proactive with the population? And the lady I spoke to said she was the Aboriginal liaison officer with the police, and she was saying it's just physically impossible because you've got so many groups to deal with, so many mobs that you can't. You could do something for one group here, and then 20 meters away, their customs are totally different.
It's not one size fits all. It's interesting because we talk about it in the in our teams a lot of how do we upskill and prepare people more. But that's a really interesting point. That it's,
yes, I think just having having a broad knowledge, having some knowledge is better than no knowledge.
Yes.
But it's about having the right knowledge, if that makes sense.
I think sometimes on a less serious note, it's just be genuine and talk to people. Yep. So I use a lot of fun and humour when I'm working. It's just, and believe it or not, so does Nigel. So we get up to all sorts. And I think it's that genuine thing. So I'll say to someone, look, if I do something wrong, tell me, I'll be mortified.
Yes.
And it's genuine. And it's lovely. I upset a lady in triage and it wasn't anything I'd done wrong. I just said to her, she was special to me because she was my first Indigenous lady that I'd ever worked with. And I says, so she'll follow me wherever I go because I'll remember her.
Yep.
And she's burst into tears.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I've made her cry. Yeah. But we had a laugh and a joke, and I just went, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you cry. And I think she was just touched.
Yeah.
Because it was genuine.
Genuineness.
And the other thing that worried me was we're English. And I thought, is this going to be a bad thing when we're going to these communities because of the lost generation and stuff like that? And you do feel it. But everybody's been absolutely lovely, and because there's no filter, I am what I am. They actually appreciate that, and so I do stuff a little bit outside the norm. So I've arranged for people to get home with the attendants, and one of the ladies said you should come out back. She said they'd love you. Because I tell jokes, I'm straight up. I try and pitch it at a level that people will understand. Because what's clear to one person isn't going to be clear to another.
Absolutely.
And then that's why, as a nurse, you're their advocate. So you say, stop. If you don't understand what they're saying, just ask them to stop, and we'll make them keep saying it till you get what they're actually saying. And that's what we need to bring.
It sounds like you've really got to have the right intentions when you do this line of work. It possibly isn't for everyone, and if you want a bit of autonomy in a large hospital where you don't see the same people twice and on different shifts all the time, you really need to want to immerse yourself in the community. I guess for someone wondering whether this could be the career for them, or could they do this for a couple of years, or could they try it, what advice do you have, or really, I guess, little nuggets of that's really, really critical for them to know and understand?
I always tell people, even from a New Zealand perspective, I've spoken to staff while I've been working here, and they say, oh, I really want to. I say, go for it, do it. What we found coming from the UK to New Zealand initially was the opportunities here are amazing. They really, really are. In the UK, when we were there, it was like, pardon the pun, it was a bit like dead man's shoes. You had to wait for someone to leave or die before you could progress through the system because it was so tight. Everyone was fighting for the same thing. Whereas come to New Zealand, I've done multiple things. I've been management. I've done nurse specialist roles. I was a duty manager in a large 1,000-bed hospital. I've been able to do these because I've strove to pushed myself, and the opportunities have been there. It's the same in Australia. If you want it, you can do it. The only thing stopping you in Australia is yourself.
Yeah.
It really, really is. Because, you can go, oh, I can't do it today because it's like, no, that's an excuse. Just go for it. If you do it and hate it, you just say, I didn't enjoy that, and I won't go back there again.
Yeah.
Because you won't know.
What about training, Helen? You've kind of touched on a little bit there of cultural awareness training, the ALS. How do you manage the training component?
I actually think Karana is a good move. Going to Karana and do them sort of courses.
Yep.
Somebody suggested it to us and we didn't. It's one of them adages, you don't know what you don't know. But Karana will get you ready for the different steps. And even if you don't want to go remote, which is where we're heading, somewhere like Kalbarri, it's still a good sound courses to do, regardless of it, you're at the older end, like both me and Nigel are, or the younger end, just to get you ready for them placements, because it's lifelong learning, is nursing, it always has been.
Yeah.
I do think make sure you've got your ED experience in the bigger hospitals, because you're exposed to more.
Yes.
But then you knock down to the actual assessment skills and stuff. And that, the more you do it, the better you get. And some of the people don't realise how intense the training is now. It was funny because when I applied Cornerstone, she said, oh, you haven't got your degree. And I went, I said, have you looked at my CV? I've actually taught degree nurses. I've got more than that. I just don't. So I was going towards my master's, and then things happened and I just didn't bother to finish it, but I was only 2 papers off, so I'm past that from the postgrad phase. But yeah, it's just lifelong learning and do the little stuff. So, but it's going to move on to one of the other questions is, you have to, when you move into these different areas, different places have different policies and guidelines. You've got to practice within their guidelines.
Yes.
So you might be able to suture, you might have PICC line access, but is it okay to use it in wax? So like your triage training, then you have to get it signed off by wax before you can actually, and that can be one of the tricky things, but everything's a process, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what about the challenges that, it sounds like you've stepped into this Don role at the moment. What comes with that? Is it really a hard decision? Obviously, this one might have been even trickier because you couldn't continue to work together. But typically stepping into those leadership roles when you're on a short-term contract and it's not a permanent position, what comes with that? Is there concerns of what happens next when you leave, or is it challenging to step up and sort of get the confidence of the team, or is it quite straightforward?
In New Zealand, when Nigel said he was the manager of ED, what he failed to remember is that they actually made me into one of the duty managers. So I managed 2 hospitals, and that was just nuts. So the phone calls, the pressures, doing the staffing, the transfers of 2 big hospitals and getting paid less than what I do on the floor here. Yeah. It's just nuts.
Yeah.
So coming into this, it's got different challenges being a smaller place, because a smaller workforce can actually be more tricky and there's dynamics to play. But when you've got that, any management's the same sort of thing. You've got processes and stuff. What I found hard with this one is the different software. So they said a pink sheet. What the hell's a pink sheet?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's on Microsoft Teams, and the processes. And sometimes, because Kalbarri hasn't had somebody permanent for a long while, it's the staff are sick of the change. Somebody comes in with brand new ideas and they've heard it, seen it, done it, they're not interested.
Yeah.
And
I think what helped with me is I'd actually been on the floor, so they knew me.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to change who I was just because I'm in this role.
Yeah.
But I do have to manage them.
And you're contracting in that role, is that right?
Yeah. I've got, they wanted me to take on a permanent fixed term contract, and Cornerstone was really good and says, if you want to do it, the door, we accept that's the norm. But then looking at the pros and cons, if you ask me what keeps me going, I live for my granddaughter in New Zealand. So I need to be able to go home regular. And that's why Cornerstone ticks all the boxes for me. I can do a contract and then I can go home for a month and see Elena. So she says, Nana, you've been there too long this time. And she wants to come and see the snakes and the crocodiles. So hopefully we'll get her out.
So I was going to ask you about the reptiles there, because you said earlier, Helen, that the spiders are not a thing.
I assume they're there.
And now you're out in Kalbarri. Like, how are you coping with because a lot of the English are really freaked out about the Australian wildlife, How are you coping?
Well, for the first, how many months was it? About 8 months, Nigel. We didn't see a kangaroo. Everybody kept going, they're everywhere.
A live kangaroo.
A live kangaroo.
Yeah.
But there's millions of them and they're just hopping around. And it was funny, I was showing my son on, because we do a lot of messenger, the kangaroos, and he's like, Mum, don't go any closer, because we'd watched the clips on YouTube where the people are fighting with them and they're trying to drown dogs.
Oh, my God.
So I'm going, look at me, I'm going closer. And emus, we've seen emus and we've seen a bobtail. We've had the kangaroos come up to the hospital door.
Wow.
And I'm going, no, sorry, we don't treat
you. No, not today.
And spiders, we haven't really seen that many. So I've seen a snake in Carnarvon. And did you know the policy is you've got to have 4 people when you see a snake till the snake catcher can get there.
Oh, wow.
But it was the maintenance guy who come, and I was so silly with him. I can't believe I got starstruck because he come. And he just looks like Steve Irwin. And he even dressed like him. And I was like, oh, my God, it's that guy who died with the fish.
I love that there's even a snake.
From there.
We were talking about.
That was when I was...
Keep going.
That was when I was the after-hours manager.
Oh, my God. The fact that you need a snake policy, like of all the other things these remote area nurses have got to contend with, it's also a snake policy. So I guess the nickname that we've heard that you've got is that a lot of the agency nurses will call you mum and dad. Did you know that?
Yeah.
As a parent, I was like, there's so many things that brought up for me. Like, why are they calling you mum and dad? What are you bringing that's special?
I think we treat people like they should be treated. So everyone deserves the right to be an individual, but we try to look after people as well. It's like Helen says, if it was our kids that were somewhere foreign, and they're on their own, because a lot of these people are traveling on their own, so we're quite fortunate because we're a couple. Whereas if you're a young single female, so somewhere like Carnarvon, where not to put people off, but the local children can be quite intimidating at times. They're running around, they're slapping them on the backside and things. It's quite off-putting. For young pretty girls to be walking around somewhere at night. So we just try to look after people. We invite them to do things with us. If we've got a bit of spare food, if we're leaving, we always pass the food on, about paying it forward. And we just like to look after people because, again, that's part and parcel of it. We are a family at the end of the day. Healthcare is a family.
Did we hear the team talk about a story about a pub? New Year's Eve in a pub? Is that one we can share, or that's a later?
The faces light up.
Wasn't sure if we were being set up or not.
No. It was last New Year's Eve. We were just in the pub and we invited one of the girls, Rachel, along. She was next door in the apartments where we were. And it's just come to the pub. There's a band on, and we're having a good night. And towards the end of the night, we were on the dance floor dancing, and this guy just comes up and basically taps us on the shoulder and says, "Is it all right if I ask your daughter if she wants to come out for a drink?" We were like, "She's not our daughter."
There's the mum and dad, isn't it?
Ask her. She's lovely.
But you've got our approval.
Yeah. And it was funny because we were all Kiwis because we class ourselves as Quinglish.
Oh, yeah.
So we're Kiwis.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that before.
English. We're Quinglish. And if she was our daughter, we'd be well proud. But we said to her, if she didn't feel safe, we'd stick around. If she was okay and she wanted to rendezvous with the guy, she just had to say, we could go. But she come on with us. And it's just that sort of thing, We left Rachel the paddleboard to use while we went home.
Yep.
And then she left it at the house centre. Just little things like that. And I think it goes a long way. We have a Cornerstone family, so in Carnarvon we had all the Cornerstone.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'd say girls, but then there was Nigel.
Nigel and the gals.
On the picture in the end. So I was all together, which was nice. And then, but we look after the agency staff as well. Yeah. So just an example, I ended up having to do a night shift on Sunday, and one of the girls was finishing on the Monday, but she couldn't get a bus into Geraldton till Tuesday, and she was going to be meeting her friends. So I actually drove her to Geraldton, took her to the hospital and dropped her off at the accommodation. And I says, I don't want anything, I just want you to pay it forward.
Yeah.
So if you can help somebody else, that's what you do.
That's what you do.
That. And Sophie was our first kid, wasn't she, Nigel?
Yeah, she's in Exmouth currently.
Tasmanian.
Do you find it hard to leave these communities? Like you do create such a community around you where you go. Is it hard to move on?
I suppose it is. Yeah.
No,
I suppose it is to a point, because you do, even in the bigger places, you still develop relationships with some of the clients because they are, horrible phrase, frequent flyers.
Yeah.
They do obviously require, more intense usage of the health system than others. So you start to see people. It's the same. It's a bit like the analogy where, on the surgical ward, the patient comes in, they have the surgery, they go home. Whereas on a medical ward, you see the same people time and time again. They either get better or they don't. Yeah. And it's a bit like that. You do develop those relationships, those rapports. And then it's about that, again, it creates that trust with the client and their family. Because obviously it's bigger than just the client. And again, with some of the populations we're dealing with, it makes it more difficult.
I think it's the same with the staff as well.
Yeah.
But the beauty of being agency is you can go back.
Yeah. If you're missing somewhere.
It's not a goodbye, but forever. It's a au revoir.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah.
Helen looked at the Cornerstone listing when we first started, and she said, if we did the minimum contracts in every place that's on this list, it'll take us 7 years to work through them all.
Wow, that's fabulous.
What
would you say to any RANs or any RNs that are listening to this and thinking, gosh, do I want to get out and travel around Australia? Like, what advice would you give them? What are the benefits, but then what are the challenges that they should know from the outset?
First of all, I say do it.
Yeah,
just do it. Because there's nothing stopping you apart from yourself. It's always a little difficult, I suppose, if you've got family at home. People are always a bit like, but you can do it. And I personally would say, be prepared to study. Helen mentioned it earlier. So like going through the RAN side of things, it's a lot of study. If you do your rec and then you've got your MEC and then you've got your pharmacotherapeutics course, and then the immunization bit, it's quite a lengthy process and expensive. Cornerstone are amazing because they do help support you through some of the financial burden, which is really welcome. But again, it's same, if you want to put it in, you can put it in and you'll get the benefits from it. Yeah. Because obviously, it's about your learning. Like Helen said, it's lifelong learning. So whatever we learn, even if we didn't go into the right area, we can just use it where we are. Yeah. I can still use it in New Zealand.
Yeah. Never wasted.
It's definitely never wasted. Never wasted.
There's hundreds of Nigels and Helens out there that what you find with agency nurse and the local nurses that are here day in and day out, we all support each other. Yeah, you have little quirks, but that's everywhere. Yep. But it's the fact that you build up that network, so the Facebook just keeps growing and growing.
Yeah, I was going to say,
keep in touch.
I think people will be asking, how do I get on contract with Helen and Nigel? Where are they at the moment?
Where's that mum and dad?
Can I go? I want to be with mum and dad. I'm going on my own. My first contract, hook me up.
we'd actually be happy to do that. And we do say to some of the girls as they're going that if they want to try somewhere, just ask us where we're going next, and I know which bus to go. Because there is that much shortfall. The other thing I'd warn them maybe is, and especially being in this role, I can see it, is sometimes the contract work will cool off. And it's the end of the tax year. But then it soon picks back up. That's when you recharge your batteries.
Go and
travel.
travel.
Actually mix it between somewhere that's really busy to somewhere that's not so busy, so you're keeping your skills up to date. If that makes sense.
That's sometimes that job security that people get a bit frightened about, but often we hear that it's not really an issue. It's a bit of a non-issue. There's always something else to move on to, and or it's a great time to just take a moment, recharge, travel, see all the great places that you nearby.
And as you said in the beginning, like, it's so vast across Australia. There are so many opportunities in little towns you may not have even heard of.
Oh, definitely.
There will be somewhere that you can find.
Ask Nigel about the wildflowers.
Tell us about the wildflowers, Nigel.
The non-existent wildflowers. So obviously Western Australia's quite famous for its wildflower season. So we were driving back about this time last year. We were driving up through into Kalbarri in Northampton, and it was like I kept saying to Helen, "Oh, look at all the flowers! They're so amazing." And the problem was there wasn't any because it was a dry summer, so there was no rain. So it was just like this standing joke that the wildflowers are out. And all we could see was the odd like weed. But hopefully this year there should be quite a good wildflower season. So Muller, where I'm going, is in the centre of it.
So let us know. Let us know. So
you need to take some good photos,
about,
Nigel, and we can put it out there and let people know that these wildflowers do exist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, thank you so much for your time today. I think we've gone completely off script, to be honest. It's been so nice to just talk to you both and to share.
That's normal for us.
I can imagine.
And us. So with this podcast and for your time today, where CMR are actually donating $500 to a charity of your choice, where is that money going today? And it's really great to be able to raise some awareness for that charity.
So we were at first. Helen wanted to offer it to one of the health centres we worked at, and I said, I think it has to be a registered charity. So we looked at it, and I found one on the system. It's the Western Australian Nurses Memorial Charity Trust. So they help with obviously helping midwives and nurses undertake research and obviously develop the nursing and midwifery profession further. So I thought that'd be quite good.
That's fantastic. Can I ask Helen that if you were to give it to one of the facilities you'd worked, what would that have looked like?
It's Northampton. It's the aged care bit. It was more or less for the residents.
What would you have wanted to give them?
It's just more or less, because I spoke to Di, the Don there, about it, and she was blown away. And I just went, just spend it on the residents. They go out for trips every now and again. They're really struggling to get staff there. And it touched me when we were working there. They were really, I didn't think I'd enjoy working in aged care, but they were amazing. It's like a little family unit, and it was just something for the residents.
Something to cheer them up and
got money.
Cheer them up and actually give back there.
So maybe take them out for a meal or whatever. They've spent a lot of money on the gardens, but they'd run out, and I just went, just spend it on whatever you think for the residents.
Okay, fantastic. We might have a little chat and see maybe we could split a bit of that $500 or something. Because that would be beautiful. Thank you both so much. We have so enjoyed speaking to you. You are just such a wonderful couple, and I think we're losing Helen. Oh, she's gone all silent. There she is again. She's come back.
I was like, did you do it, Nigel?
Put you on mute, Helen. But we so appreciate the time from both of you and the stories. And I think from a Cornerstone perspective too, thank you for looking after our community out there on the road as well. You know, it's lovely to see a community coming together in a little Cornerstone community out there.
We've even pilfered stuff from other
agencies.
I heard you have keep grabbing those stuff. We do our little Christmas parties around the country in the area, so we'll make sure we find out where you are at Christmas, and hopefully you've got a little community around you of Cornerstone.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, it's like anybody who's actually looking at moving to Australia. I say to them, do the internet going. Do do Cornerstone or an agency, because then you can see where you actually want to settle down before you make the big leap.
Yeah. Good
That's
advice.
so very
and we're
true.
a family.
This is
Family.
it. We definitely are, and we talk a lot about the community, like you're part of our community, you know, and that's so special for us. And hearing these stories will no doubt inspire other great candidates to get out there and jump on the bandwagon and do what you're doing. So thank you so very much for your time today and for your time always for the team.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to share, rate and review. This allows us to reach more people and share more incredible stories. Click the follow or subscribe button to ensure you never miss an episode.